Thank you. For the record, Darryl Perry, CEO of Lobby LLC. And earlier I passed out, everybody should have some reading material for me. One of those things is the aforementioned veto message from Governor Brown of California. I also included the Senate notes on HB 362, which is a very similar piece of legislation that the Senate committee this morning actually voted 3-2 on a motion to ITL. You can read basically everything that I had to say in that. And yeah, this is a very targeted piece of legislation where it only applies to presidential and vice presidential candidates. If this is, such a grand idea, it should apply to every candidate for every political office, going all the way down to trustee of the trust fund at town levels. And further, this does not just prohibit that person from being on the ballot. If you look at page 2, line 1 and 2, it says that no presidential elector shall cast a vote for a person who failed to comply with the provisions. Meaning that in 2004, when Michael Bednarik was the Libertarian Party's presidential nominee, he very publicly stated that he had not filed tax returns in a number of years. Not only would he not have been allowed on the ballot had this been the law of the land, but had he won the popular vote in the state of New Hampshire, the electors would have been prohibited by law from casting their votes for him. So I see this as going way too far, and I will answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Perry. Representative. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Perry, for taking your question. So isn't it against the law to not file tax returns?
There are provisions in statute. If you don't have income over a certain threshold, you are not required to file. I am not a tax attorney. I don't know exactly what those thresholds are, but I do know that there are some people, especially libertarians and constitutionalists, who, for philosophical reasons, do not file tax returns.
Further question? Isn't that breaking the law? $10,000 is individual.
It could possibly be a violation of law, but if you're going to prohibit someone from being on the ballot for breaking a law, that seems to be adding additional requirements, which the courts have said you're not allowed to do for presidential candidates. Eugene Debs ran for president sitting in prison as a felon. So I don't see why not filing a tax return should disqualify someone while convicted felons can still run.
Representative Sousa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Perry. I'm not sure if you're the right one to answer this. If not, we'll pass the question on. But I'm seeing something that seems to me unfair. It says that you have to file the last 3. But what if the primary comes before a requested extension? Usually, you file in April and an extension goes to October. So
our presidential primary is generally January or February. So I think what this would be is the last 3 that had been filed, or for the last 3 years in which a filing had occurred. That would be a question better addressed to the Deputy Secretary.
okay, thanks.
Representative Morninger.
I will waive my question. Thank you.
Further questions from committee members? Representative Barron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. In the previous discussion you just had on filing tax returns and legality or illegality, that this bill isn't talking about people filing their tax returns with the IRS. It's about filing them with the state of New Hampshire and making them public. Isn't that correct?
Correct, but if a tax return has not been filed with the IRS, you have no return that you could file with the Secretary of State.
But you certainly could file with the IRS and then just say, I choose not to file with the Secretary of State.
Correct, and then you would not be allowed on the ballot. But again, my concern is about those people who, for philosophical reasons, have not filed a tax return. They have nothing to hand over to the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you for taking my question. I'm reading Article 2, Section 1, Sub 4 of the Constitution of the United States. And I'm wondering if you see anything in here regarding qualification for running for president having to do with tax returns.
The qualifications are natural-born citizen, 35 years of age, and 14 years resident in the United States.
Anything in there that you see about
No.
tax returns? Follow up. And in this bill, it defines personally identified information that can be redacted, includes social security number, home addresses, employer ID number, street addresses, taxpayer, preparer identification, etc. What about your medical deductions? If you itemize your medical deductions, is that not included in your tax return, and this is prohibited from disclosure by HIPAA? I mean, you're basically asking somebody to talk about all the doctors that they've received.
You make a good point, Representative.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that a question?
Questions or concerns? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.